and this is something that I've actually had a chat with a number of people about, is the educational piece to the internal recruiters, to your internal HR teams, because the people that I generally deal with, as you know, Adrian, are generally the commercial directors, head of revenue, directors of revenue, the decision makers for that function. I don't have a lot of contact with the internal recruitment teams or the HR teams. The communication gap between what that commercial leader wants and what the HR team actually advertise can massively vary. So that communication piece and that educational piece needs to be addressed. I still think to this day, definitely. But I also believe that it comes down to the application process as well. And again, I've had this very recently where a candidate would apply for a job, the HR or internal recruitment team that haven't had a background in revenue management, that don't understand the fundamentals of it and where it's going, how could they possibly understand who this person actually is or what they can actually bring to the table? And this is a question that does come up a lot. So I suppose in answer to your question, I believe that we are walking in the right direction. I just think that there needs to be a bigger educational piece from our GMs, from our operational managers, from the commercial teams themselves, because the revenue management role, as we will be discussing in more detail today, it has changed. It's changed a massive amount. And the job descriptions from last year will not be relevant to this year. The job descriptions from the year before that will not be relevant to the year before, and so on and so forth, because it is an ever-changing role. Revenue managers, as you said, have this perception of being the dark room report writers that don't see the light of day and can't sort of string two words together because everything's data. When in fact, that's not the case at all. They are some of the most incredible, influential people in the industry, and they should be celebrated to that fact. And that's something that I've been sort of very outspoken about, as of you. But that's what we're looking for now. And that's, again, what we're going to be coming on to. But we're not looking for that dark room person. We're looking for this strong commercial, strong commercial leader that is able to sort of talk to the board, but also talk to other stakeholders in layman's terms, able to convey the data that people will understand. It's no longer this terminology king that will be able to sort of, I don't know, discombobulate anybody that tries to listen to them, and then they go completely cross-eyed and get bored and don't listen anymore. It's just not the case.
No, I completely agree. And you know, anyone who's listened to me at any point will hear me say so many times, revenue managers rule the world. In my opinion, revenue managers, sit in this really unique position of understanding each of the departments and understanding cost and understanding distribution and marketing and sales and all of those wonderful pieces of the jigsaw that fit together to make a hotel a commercial entity. Yes. But I guess kind of moving on from that, Tom, is, you know, if those job descriptions and there's some sort of juxtaposition on that side, and that we need to educate and fill that gap, what about now to the other side? What do you think revenue managers are actually looking for in their job? Like, if they could write the job description, this ideal job description, what do you think they're looking for in the role?
The two biggest things that I see are accountability and autonomy. Okay. Those two are the biggest things that I would argue, the biggest two things that any good revenue manager in our market now are going to want, and that's what I've seen. Of course, in the market that we find ourselves in as well, job security. I know that is an incredibly difficult thing to even talk about or guarantee at the moment. But every single candidate that I've spoken to over the last week that I've been working on a role, every single one of them has said, well, you know, last one in, first one out. How is this going to work? Where's the business at? They are looking much more at how secure the business is right now, what the business is doing in terms of investment, how they're moving forward, because that's a big question, because they don't want to go into a job that they're just going to lose within a few months' time because the market hasn't picked up. But the two biggest things, as I say, autonomy and accountability. Too many hospitality environments right now put restraints. You know, it's either this way or the highway. You know, we do things in a very particular fashion. It's worked for this long. that's what we want to keep to. And what revenue managers really want, it's in the very core of their nature, is be sort of creative and try and find ways to generate new revenue streams. It's just is what it is. They optimize. And if they're told to just keep going, keep bringing in your extra 1-2% each year, and that'll be great. No, they want to get more creative. They want to be more imaginative. Stop putting them in this box, for God's sake, and give them the opportunity. So those are mine: accountability, autonomy, and the opportunity to be creative, the opportunity to just be able to do their job and be able to do it the way that they see, because they're the ones, again, if they're good at what they do and they are attuned to the times, they're the ones that are going to be communicating with their owners, their operation managers, their GMs. They're the ones that are getting in contact with them on a weekly basis. They're the ones that need to understand the product. And if they understand the product, they understand their client, you're in a good place. But if they don't have that autonomy and they don't have the accountability side of it, they will find somewhere that will give them that. So that's what I would say. And that's, again, from my experience of working with a lot of candidates at the moment.
I'm going to ask you a question, sort of sidestepping, and because I didn't send you this question through, but it's just kind of come to mind. Sorry, I know, throwing you in at the deep end, under a bus, Tom. But a very good friend of mine was a revenue manager in a very well-known, beautiful 5-star property in London. And his position was changed for the better. Well, actually, I think for the better, but I'd love to get your opinion on this. And his title was changed to commercial director. So he had sales, he had marketing, he had front office, he had concierge, he had everyone, F&B, C&B, all reporting into him. And because I think that particular hotel did actually understand that he was touching all of these departments, he was impacting. They saw the great job that he was making in rooms division, and they gave him that autonomy to touch those other departments. Do you see that happening? I'm sorry, I know this is to throw you under the bus, but do you see that happening, and do you think that's a good move for the industry?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think the commercial director role is now, and excuse the terminology here, but it's the new sexy role that people want to get into in revenue. It just is. Commercial director is encompassing, as it says, all areas of commercial. But for somebody in revenue management that, again, will generally be touching on sales, marketing, and so on, they will already be touching on these elements. They will already be communicating with these guys a lot. Well, they should be anyway if they're not. But that commercial director role is now the role that people sought after. They want it. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for anybody. One thing I would say, and I know that we are revenue management biased, don't get me wrong, but I would say that I know a very good friend of mine actually who's chief commercial officer for a tech company, and he's come from a sales background, but he had a very good understanding of revenue management and wider commercial. So the commercial director role, I don't think is by any means exclusive to revenue management. Don't get me wrong, I think it would be best suited, in my opinion, to revenue management just because of their overwhelming skill set. But yeah, I think for any sort of 5-star resort or 5-star property like the one you've mentioned, creating a role like commercial director to have somebody heading up their commercial functions is a win-win for everybody, to be quite honest with you. I just think the only argument you'll probably have is who gets into that job, because director of marketing, director of sales, and director of revenue, I can guarantee you will all be saying, well, I should be sitting in that job. So whatever argument will continue until the end of days.
Okay, so here's the $16 million question. How do we sprinkle that fairy dust? How do we make that positive change? What do we need to do to convince? And it's actually often not, well, in my opinion, it's not always general managers who hold that role back. It could be owners, management companies. It could be, because there's pressures there. Of course, there are pressures, to hit bottom line, and sometimes it's occupancy, it's RevPAR, it's ADR, and it actually really bothers me sometimes when people say, well, what's your goal for this hotel? Is it occupancy? Is it ADR? Is it RevPAR? I'm like, well, why does it have to be one thing? Let's look at everything. But getting back to the point, because I do tend to ramble, sorry, but getting back to the point of how do we make that change, Thomas? Where does that change come from to drive that positivity and make those changes within our environment?
Yeah, this is something that I've been trying to do for such a long time. It starts with the industry. Okay, so for everybody watching and anybody that knows me, I have been very outspoken about driving positive change in our industry. My biggest hold up, and it's something that I completely accept, is that I am a recruiter at the end of the day. I'm a recruitment consultant. A lot of people will say, you know, who is this guy to be sort of saying certain things and sort of pushing for certain change. But I've been sort of collaborating with a lot of senior commercial leaders in our industry to actually actively drive change and actively drive where this commercial, I suppose, function, but revenue management goes from here. Whether that be doing the workshops that I do with various different businesses, whether it be me collaborating with organizations like WHTT. There's all sorts of ways that I'm trying. I'm bringing, so twice a year, I bring together commercial leaders in our industry. We organize a dinner, we come together, we talk about the challenges, and we try and work out ways to create positive change. The problem is that as an industry, again, we have a habit and have a tendency to be known to be dragging our heels with regards to change. We hate change. And that's notorious with systems, it's notorious with job roles, it's notorious with the industry as a whole. But I do think with the disruption that we've seen, and I've said this on a number of occasions, but the disruption that we've seen, although it's come with catastrophic consequences for a lot of people, and I'm on the front line of that, don't get me wrong, it's driven a necessity for change. It's driven a necessity for people to understand that, let's say the revenue manager role right now, it's no longer this sort of role where they're dealing a little bit with marketing, they're dealing a little bit with sales, but they're doing revenue management. It's not anymore. We're seeing now that it's a commercial manager role. It's no longer a revenue role, because they have to understand what and how marketing works and what and how sales work. They need the influencing skills from sales, but they need the creativity from marketing. If they don't have those, they're behind the curve with all these other revenue managers that are currently developing their skills. So with regards to change, it comes as a collective effort from the industry itself. And that is paramount. And as I say, I'm trying incredibly hard to drive that, but I cannot and I will not be able to do it, because at the end of the day, as I say, I am a recruitment consultant and my credibility only goes so far. Whereas if you have somebody who has that role of commercial director or COO or CEO, they will always be heard and they will always be listened to, but that's who we need. We need ambassadors out there right now. And unfortunately, there's not enough of them. So unfortunately, I wish I could be more positive about that, but there are people like yourself, like me. I know that a good friend of ours is on the call today, Jane Pendlebury. She's at the forefront of it as well. I've spoken to her on a number of occasions about how the industry does need to move forward and what we need to be doing as a collective. So I really do wish that it was moving quicker. But trust me, for anybody watching this, I am on the case. I am trying my absolute hardest. But it does need to start with the commercial leaders on our industry. And it needs to, from GMs to operational managers to commercial directors to directors of marketing, whoever they are, they just need to come together and think, this doesn't work. And if we're not going to change, who's going to do it for us? It's got to start with us. So that would be my answer to that. So unfortunately, I wish I could be more positive, but we are trying.
Well, I personally, Tom, from what I know of you, and I have a huge amount of respect for you, I think you do yourself a disservice by saying I'm just a revenue consultant, recruitment consultant, because I think you have this unique position of being able to see things from both sides. And I think, owners maybe needing something and revenue managers needing something else. I think you have this unique position of being able to see it from both sides. So I think, your voice added to, the wonderful Jane and everyone else, Trevor from Revenue Hub, people like myself, there's a lot of people on the call here that are doing the same thing. I think it's a start, but I totally agree with you. I think we need to come together as that collective. So there may be other conversations go on of this call for sure.
Can I just say that, to put a little bit of a sort of flag out there, then, if anybody is interested and is passionate about this subject as we are, Adrian, I'd be more than happy to set up a forum where we might be able to discuss and try and find ways to change. And as I said, I will always do my part. I'm always up for it. And so yeah, I'd put that out to anybody watching if they want to contact Adrian or me or anybody and build a forum, and let's try and do what we can. I'd be more than up for it. So there you go. There's me putting that out there.
Well, I second that completely. So yeah, I'm with you on that, and I can see some faces on the call agreeing to that. So yeah, absolutely. Just one of the questions that had come in, Tom, and I know that you have seen this one. I'd just be really interested to get your opinion. So the question was the importance of raising awareness to the new generation of commercial leaders. They would argue is more important now than ever if we're going to cultivate this future of revenue management and stop driving that culture of silos. So I suppose it's maybe dragging on from the last comment that you made. So I suppose for me is this coming out of COVID, coming out of this awful period that everyone is in. I personally feel that revenue management is more important than ever, and getting that collective, and I know we've said it 100 times, is working in silos just doesn't work, and it's old and outdated. And hopefully if this awful epidemic has brought anything to the fore is, working more collectively as an industry. But do you agree that, that we do need to be focusing on revenue management, or do you think I'm completely barking up the wrong tree and the person who asked this question is as well? Or what do you think?
No, I don't think you're barking up the wrong shit at all. You're talking to a guy that professes to love revenue management. No, you're talking to the right guy if you're asking for that one. I do believe that I think the first part of that was raising awareness. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, if for anybody watching that doesn't know, I very proudly lecture at a number of universities on revenue management as a career path. And I also talk to them about career development skills as well. And that's with undergrads, master's degree students, first years, and so on. Now, with regards to revenue management, up until, I wasn't aware that the course was such a hop, skip, and jump. It was almost just a page, and it's just not enough. So I was on a committee at a very prestigious university, because they were reviewing their syllabus for the year ahead, and they wanted my input with regards to revenue management, and also I suggested asset management in there as well, because there wasn't a piece in there at all. And if you know the industry right now, asset management is, again, sorry for using this term, but it's the new sexy sort of area to be working in if you're in revenue management. It's a new option that is very viable for people to walk into. Anyway, in terms of raising awareness, I do not, under any circumstances, think we are doing enough at all. I remember when I first started working in revenue management recruitment, and I made a point of finding the most senior people I could find, meeting them, and prodding them and saying, what are you doing with regards to your graduate schemes, with regards to your internships, with regards to your applications for junior level roles? And every single one of them, bar one, said, we have no idea, actually. We don't know how many applications we get for revenue management. We have no idea. 3 years ago, or maybe even 2.5 years ago, maybe, I managed to get the job for a student with no experience at all in revenue management into their first ever job into revenue management with no experience. They walked straight from the classroom that I lectured them in fact, and they walked straight into one of my clients. The client in particular, I won't name names, but the client in particular was an incredibly forward-thinking commercial leader. She was somebody that sort of took a punt, and it was the first time I know of in the UK that we'd ever got a student with no experience at all into revenue management. Now, anybody that's worked in revenue management for some time will generally understand that the process was notoriously reservations manager, revenue analyst, or support function within revenue. Of course, there may be some people that have come from sales and sort of other departments as well, don't get me wrong, but the general consensus was reservations. What this did was skipped 4-5 years of hard graft, difficult times, working in sort of front of house and so on. And again, I'm not taking away from anybody that did go through that process because they've understood the workings of a property. That's one of the things that I profess to say, that my students, they will have internships. They won't have the same on the ground experience, don't get me wrong, but I've not had one student yet that hasn't worked out, which to me is huge. And that includes the University of Lyon, the University of Surrey, the University of Oxford Brookes, the University of Essex. All these guys have been sending CVs through. I've been talking to these guys, and we've been able to get them into jobs. In fact, a very great story at the start of this month. One of my students from Lyon that I lectured for 2 years, she got a job with a brilliant hospitality group just at the start of this month. With no experience, she graduated in July, and we managed to get her first job. And it was her dream job in the commercial function, more specifically within marketing. And I got an email from her manager, and I'm sorry, I'm going off a tangent here, but it's such a good story. The manager specifically sent me a text saying, this is her words, she's just bossed her first conference call with 2 owners. She absolutely smashed it. I owe you a snacks box. I'm going to send something to you, or something like that. And to watch, I can't tell you, and apologies everybody, but I can't tell you how proud I was that we had a student that I found, that I lectured in a classroom. Sorry, I've got a load of sun coming in now. That I lectured in a classroom, saw her journey, got her into various different sort of open days and things like that through my clients. And then to watch her start her first job and to have her cry down the phone saying, this is my dream job, for a recruitment consultant that genuinely cares about their people, it was absolutely priceless. And that's what we need to do, is because there's so many amazing people out there, but the onus is on us to raise awareness of our industry, because nobody else is going to do it. And again, I reiterate, I am a recruitment consultant. I obviously have a lot of ties with the industry. I have a lot of ears that I sort of can speak in and generally get listened to. But the fact is, if we are working in revenue management and we love revenue management, I challenge everybody on this call to think about what they've done to actively try and get people into our industry. And if they can honestly hold their hand on their heart and say, look, I've done my bit, I've got people into it, I've raised awareness, I've spoken to students, I've connected with people, then fine. But I would definitely argue that we're not doing enough. And I would challenge anybody to argue against that. I
completely agree with you. And I've been doing revenue management for, I tell people about 100 years, because, I am that old, but probably over 20 anyway. And back in the day, I did come through that sales role. And I can remember my boss back in Hilton Day saying to me, oh, you'll never, because this person called a revenue manager just beamed down into our hotel, and I was fascinated by what he was doing. And my boss at the time said, no way, Adrian, you'll never go into revenue management. It's too nerdy for salespeople. You're a people person. You won't sit analyzing data and whatever. And I'm so glad that I didn't listen to her. And I'm so glad that I did make that move, because I think that, I had a little bit of front office experience, and not years and years, probably 3 or 4 years, but coming from that sales background and into revenue really did hold me in good stead. But I think when you started to talk there about qualifications, I do have to give a shout out at this point to Jane, who's on the call, and to HOSPA.
Yeah.
For their CRM qualification. We have our wonderful Kirsty doing her second tier in that at the moment. And we have our 3 new recruits, George, Suzette and Avalon, just starting their level 1. And I just felt that that was so important, that even though they're going to be salespeople in our environment, in our organisation, that they understand revenue management and understand the pain points of, you know, the people they're going to talk to, and no better way to learn it than through HOSPA CRM. So big shout out to Jane. If anyone is interested, they can either contact me or Jane directly, because it's a fantastic course. And I love that everyone else in my team is going to be more qualified than I am at the end of all of this. It's going to be fabulous. But I wonder, Tom, if I could wind you back, just because there's a great question that someone has sent in that I feel we can end on, but just one thing that I would like to understand is that forgotten role of the person who's actually doing the recruiting. And I know you and I had a chat about that, and I just wondered if you would maybe just share your thoughts on where that person sits and how that person does their job.
Yeah. Well, coming at it from a recruitment point of view, one of the biggest things that I think is forgotten by a lot of people, whether that be the candidates on the market, whether that be the recruiters themselves, we forget about the individual that's actually recruiting right now. And this was a point that I sort of made to you just the other day. And it was quite compelling for me, because it actually did stop me in my tracks, because I was listening to somebody. And again, they were in a very fortunate position in a time like this to be recruiting. But they argued the fact that it wasn't any easier. It was just different. It was just one of these things that was, you know, rather than having 6 or 7 candidates that they had to choose from, they had 400 or 500. And the pressure that adds to anybody in this industry right now is uncomprehendable, if I'm completely honest with you. Because the responsibility that rests on that individual shoulders, the decision maker's shoulders, is huge. They, you know, we were talking about this the other day, and this person was feeling very similar to the way, you know, what we were talking about. And to get to a point where you sieve through 200 applications, and then the realization sets in that you're potentially going to be changing this person's life because they have been going through the most awful anxiety. They've got families at home, they've got bills to pay, they need to get back into work. They know that they've got a final stage interview coming up. There's 3 other people on final stage, and they're hoping with everything they've got that they're going to get this job. And the person that has to go back and say, look, we've only got one job, and it's nothing personal. It's nothing to do with you as an individual. And I understand the difficulties that you've got going on, but I can only give this job to one person. And inevitably, they've got to have these 2 phone calls that are going to quite understandably decimate somebody's expectation. Because anybody in this market right now, I don't care who you are, if you're looking for a job, you will be believing, if you get through to that final stage interview, you will be believing that you will get that job. Doesn't matter how many other people are in that process, your thought process is, I'm going to get this job. And the responsibility on that employer's head to call that person and say, look, I'm so sorry. It's not your day today. And to come off that call, and again, we've spoken about this, but they have sleepless nights. They have situations where they just can't live with themselves almost. They're just thinking, oh my God, I remember them talking about their children. I remember them talking about the situation they're in. And that is what is forgotten right now. And don't get me wrong, again, as you've seen, on my weekly show every Friday, we promote candidates that are trying to promote themselves to potential employers. And I am feeling the pressure that they are under, and I'm with them every step of the way on the front line of this. But I do not believe that we should be forgetting or taking for granted what these guys in these companies are recruiting right now, because the pressure they're under is monumental. And forgetting the sort of, everybody's perception right now is, oh, well, they could choose anybody. You know, they've got all the choice in the world. That's the problem. That is the exact problem, is that they do have the choice in the world, and nobody is ever going to think of them kindly because they've said no to this person. So for anybody that's had to recruit out there, including obviously you, Adrian, I honestly feel for you, because it can't have been easy. It really can't have been.
No, I, honestly, from a personal perspective, we now have 3 wonderful people in the team, but for a sales job, for a company based in Northern Ireland, doing revenue management software, I think we had 57 applications, and every single one of those was a really difficult decision. And some of the people that we got CVs from, and there are a few of them on the call today, I would employ in a heartbeat, in any other situation, in a heartbeat. And I hope that someday our business is strong enough to go back and speak to those people. But making those final decisions is just heartbreaking, because you are changing someone's life.
Yeah.
So yeah, but as you say, there's some great people out there. And there's kind of a question about the future that I want to kind of wrap up with, but I'd really love if anyone has any questions to either unmute yourself, very happy for you to do that and chat to us directly, or put it in the little chat box. But I'm going to throw one at you there, Tom. I don't know if you see, from Davina. Thank you, Adrian and Thomas, for organising this uplifting seminar. We're uplifting, Tom. Delighted. And apologies, by the way, if you can hear the rain pouring down. I live in Ireland. It rains all the time, and it's very noisy. I'm so sorry. But what software skills does the revenue management professional need nowadays to upskill themselves? Do you want to have a go at that, Tom?
Okay, so in terms of software skills, I think Excel, Tableau, these are the big ones. If you're not already in tune with those, I think definitely. Power BI is just another element towards sort of the Tableau world, I suppose. Granted, I believe it's slightly more advanced, whereas Tableau's, I believe, again, I'm not any first-hand experience, but those are the areas that I would say. One thing I would say to Davina and anybody else is, with regards to your own development skills now, revenue. If you're working in revenue management, revenue management. That's under no question. The world that we're going to be going into, and the world that we're in now, requires you to have the soft skills. It requires you to have the creativity for marketing. It requires you to have a more rounded approach to your commercial strategy, I suppose, rather than just being focused on the revenue management element. I would strongly argue, and this is not coming just from me, this is coming from other commercial leaders that have been recruiting during the last 6 months, is they were looking to see if people had been doing courses while on furlough. One of the biggest ones that kept getting requested was marketing. They were kept looking for this marketing course. And it doesn't need to be from eCornell or anything like that. It can be one of these free ones that you find online, or you pay a little bit of money, or relatively a little bit of money for it, but you're actively trying to develop those wider commercial skills. So I would argue that, yes, the software side of things is definitely important, don't get me wrong. But I would definitely look at your sort of wider soft skills, marketing, and so on, because those are going to be the big things that people will be looking for. So I hope that answered your question. I don't mean to divert away from the software side.
No, just I was going to leave this to the end, but it probably is a good time just to mention it now. And this is literally hot off the press. Some of the people on this call haven't even been approached to support. But what we're planning, I know you have, Tom, and you've said yes, so you're not getting out of it now, it's recorded. Yeah. But what we plan to do as a company is, over the next few weeks, is to organise some short, sharp little blasts of training. So maybe 2-hour sessions twice a week on revenue, on distribution, on marketing, on PPC, on meta, on communication skills, just little short, sharp blasts of training. And Jane Pendlebury, you will be asked, so just tipping you off on that. We thought that we'd try and do that over the next few weeks. If hotels are in lockdown and you've got some time, it's going to be completely free. We're going to bring in industry experts like yourselves to deliver that training, and it's just Right Revenue is going to collate all of that together. So please, you've obviously registered for this webinar, so you will find out about it. So, if that's something that you think might be of use to you, as I say, it's not going to be Right Revenue trying to organise everything. We're going to bring in the best people that we can to deliver that training, and we're just going to facilitate it. So I'll keep you all posted with that. But I suppose, kind of rounding it up, because I know we try and keep this to 45 minutes, because I want to ask you a couple of personal questions at the end, Tom, where'd I get George from? Tom, sorry. But all of this positivity about revenue management, which we all love and we're all flying the flag for, how do we keep these wonderful, commercially minded, strategic thinking people in our organizations? What does this career path look like for these really important people, to keep them engaged and to keep them really making a huge difference to our business? What do we have to do?
Sure. Well, if you have the infrastructure to be able to provide career progression, if we start from the absolute bottom, if they come in at revenue exec, revenue analyst, revenue manager, cluster revenue manager, director of revenue, blah, blah, blah. If you've got the infrastructure to be able to provide that, then fantastic. My argument to anybody that says, well, we don't have these opportunities, we don't have these areas of the business that we can put them in, we don't have teams, we have a two-person function. I would challenge them and say, well, why not find an opportunity, a project for them to deal with? Why not look at what their scope is? If they're currently in revenue management, could they look at a wider commercial role? Could we create something where they head up the sales and marketing teams? Could that be the next opportunity where it goes from revenue manager to commercial manager? I would also challenge somebody to say, well, if the business we require these guys to get more creative, then give them the opportunity, give them that accountability and autonomy to say, go and see what you can do with our property. And if you create something, then we could look at your package. We could look at the increase on that. Not everybody is looking for the job title. They're looking for the scope. They're looking to keep their mind, as you said, their strategic mind going. And if somebody's dealing with a 300-bed property in the regions, it's got mainly leisure business, and we're looking at it for, then it's going to get to the point where they're just going to start rolling their eyes back. They'll come in, they'll do the work they need to do, and they know that they could probably put their feet up and it will all do itself. It's about keeping your guys energized. And the only way that you're ever going to be able to do that as a manager is understanding who they are, what their behaviors are, what their skill set is. If you understand those elements of your people, then you'll understand what truly motivates them. Because not all people love, being promoted to everybody to say, hey guys, they've just won Employee of the Month. Everybody pay attention to that person. Not everybody likes that. Some people just like a nice silent pat on the back and saying, you know what, you did a great job last month. Well done. So I do believe that, yes, hierarchy and the structure, if you've got that promotion element is always going to be a popular one. But if you don't, just get creative and understand what your people actually want. You could almost just say to a revenue manager, what can I do to keep you motivated? What can I do to make sure that you're keeping yourself, I suppose, energized and engaged with what you're doing? If you openly ask the question, somebody's always going to go, oh, you know what? I've never been asked that before. I've never been asked what keeps me energized. I've never been asked what keeps me motivated. I've just been told this is the job, So I do think that us as employers and us as people in the industry, don't be afraid to ask your people the question. Just say, look, how can I keep you energized? We don't have the structure, but I also don't want to lose you. So what can I do? Tell me what I can do for you. And see where it goes, because you might have the most incredible open conversation with your people that might drive an opportunity for you to make more business, create more revenue, keep them more energized, keep the person so you're not having to recruit, and probably build up a better relationship with your guys. So that's what I'd say.
Well, I think that's a really, really great sort of final comment to end on, Tom. And I suppose what I asked you to do today is, like, we are very strict that this is never a sales pitch. But what I'd really love for you to do is tell us what's going on with you, just interesting stuff that's going on, because I think it's so important for us to give you the opportunity. You've given us an hour of your time today just to tell us a little bit of what's going on within your organisation. If you have 2 minutes, that'd be great.
No, definitely. I'll try and be as quick as possible. And trust me, guys, this won't be a selling opportunity, even though I am a recruitment consultant. But one of the biggest things that we've got going on right now is the ENF TV channel. We have 3 different series running simultaneously. So every Monday, we have a commercial leader that we interview. We find out about their background. Adrian's actually been on the show. In fact, Jane's also been on the show. And we talk about their background, how they got into revenue management, or how they developed their career in hospitality. We talk about various hot topics and current issues that are going on. And then we find out a bit about what's going on with them. On a Friday, so every Friday, we have candidate interviews, which is one of the biggest engagement pieces that we've got right now. Every Friday, we have a candidate that is currently on the market. We hear about their experience, their expertise, but we also find out from their perspective how they're finding the market, what advice they'd give to other people, and what's been keeping them motivated. It's a massive sort of initiative from us to try and promote candidates to potential employers. This is not a way for any recruitment consultant to make business, because obviously these employers will be contacting them directly, but it's all about trying to get people back into jobs. And then the final one is once a month, we have a panel discussion that basically brings people from all different functions to come together and talk about various different topics. And we have sort of questions come in for the audience. So those are the 3 big things that we've got going on with regards to ENF TV. A bit of an exclusive for Adrian's show, to be quite honest with you. I asked Adrian and about 7 other commercial leaders out there about an idea that I had to support the industry in terms of recruitment. And that is a recruit now, pay later scheme, where we basically provide our expertise, our knowledge, our skill set, I suppose, to find people quickly, get them into their job, and any client that uses the service will not have to pay the full fee until 2021. It's a lot of people, including Adrian, said that there is a risk element in there, but I believe very passionately in this industry, and I am, if anybody knows me, I am genuinely trying to get it back on its feet in every way that I possibly can. So to provide a service that will allow people to recruit without having to pay that full fee, or the pressure of having to pay that full fee until 2021, is just our way of being able to do our bit. So that is an exclusive. It's yet to be formally advertised. We've got 2 clients right now that are utilizing the service. So if anybody knows of anybody that thinks that they might benefit from this service, then please do get in touch, because it's a genuine initiative from a very passionate person about this industry.
Well, I think that's so amazing, Tom, that you've done that. And I think that really stands out of who you are as a person, who your company and what your company is, and how involved you are in the industry, and that you are flying the flag for us all. So, there are very, very few companies that are doing anything close to that. So I think that's amazing. And I think as an industry, we should all be saying thank you for that. So I think it's an amazing initiative. So 2 exclusives today, which is great. We'll keep you all up to date. And actually, Tom, if you want to send me anything, I'll loop around with everyone and just send you details on the training that I spoke about, and also Tom's wonderful announcement, world-beating announcement there. So I'll keep everyone posted on that. I do apologise for the rain. I'm so sorry. It's getting louder here. I'm so sorry.
I was just going to say, if anyone does have any questions that they didn't feel they could answer, or they felt a bit shy about it, or whatever, just drop me a message through LinkedIn or drop me an email. I'd be more than happy to converse or build a dialogue with anybody. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there before we end.
Perfect. And me too. And listen, thank you so much. This will be recorded. We'll send it out to everyone. And I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Tom. You are a star. It's a pleasure to speak to you every time we do get to chat, because you just make me feel more passionate about this industry. So thank you so much for your time today. And I'm going to go before I need a boat to get out of my house. I'm so sorry. Listen, thanks, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Bye.